Hey y'all! Thanks for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is September 4th, 2025. I'm following up on this story. It is a continuous story regarding the Lavra caves in Ukraine and the blasphemous things that are happening there. I'm going to give you the latest and then a little bit of history. We'll start with the latest. Ukraine runs microbiological tests on Kiev caves relics. Refuse to provide explanations, lawyer says. Lord have mercy. Ukrainian authorities have conducted biological tests on the relics of the Kiev caves Lavra, but have refused to provide detailed explanations about the procedures, according to Archpriest Nikita Chekman, the monastery's lawyer. Father Nikita said that in response to a formal legal request regarding the opening of reliquaries and the removal of relics from the caves to storage facilities, the Kiev Caves Lavra National Preserve, a state body that considers the monastery a museum, as it has been state-owned since Soviet times, issued a letter that did not answer the question substantively, reports the Union of Orthodox Journalists. Okay, so attempts to obtain information from the Ministry of Culture and Strategic Communications of Ukraine were also unsuccessful. The ministry advised Father Nikita to contact the National Preserve directly for answers. The priest's lawyer emphasized that microbiological tests were carried out by the laboratory of the regional center, and this long name, Ecomedkim, at Sumy State University. Legal requests for the results of these tests were ignored, and the Ministry of Culture stated that it could not provide copies of the testing protocols, again directing inquiries to the Lavra. According to Father Nikita, this refusal to provide information violates Ukrainian law on advocacy and the rights of lawyers to access information necessary to represent their clients. The Lavra has filed a complaint with the Kiev Regional Bar Council to hold responsible parties accountable and to prevent further desecration of the relics. The controversy over the handling of the relics follows reports from August showing museum staff removing reliquaries from the caves and handling them outdoors and stacking them haphazardly in a closet. Yes, I reported that. The monastery's brotherhood has not had access to the relics since March. This is key right here. Since March. Those monks were basically banished from the caves and the relics in the caves. Important point there. When a government commission began inspecting them. And so, let's go over this. So this is what's going on right now, which is horrific. And I'm going to also show you another article from, incidentally, this one is actually from, I'm going to show you how far this goes back with what's going on with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the canonical one. Okay, so this article, Assaults on Holy Places Will Not Go Unpunished, a conversation with the abbot of Pochev, Holy Dormition Lavra, Metropolitan Vladimir Morez of Pochev. Okay, so this was translated in 2018, I believe. So let me show you what he had to say here. They ask him questions. But in the post-Maidan period, so post-2014 coup, the Ternopil deputies of the provincial council have repeatedly initiated the transfer of the Pochev Lavra with all of the surrounding territories of the Regional Historical Reserve, arguing that the Lavra is a national treasure, and therefore the Greek Catholics, the schismatics of the false patriarch Philaret, and the non-canonical autocephalites, Ukrainian Autocephalous Orthodox Church, has the right to worship in it. So this has been going on for quite a while. In essence, this means depriving the canonical church of a great Orthodox holy site. Thankfully, the head of state has not yet responded to the request of the Ternopil deputies. Although a wave of takeovers of parish churches has swept through the province and other regions of western Ukraine with the allowance and support of the local authorities, a wave of takeovers of parish churches all the way back 2014 and on. Okay, so for me this is news because I wasn't really following what was going on in Ukraine before Russia had to respond to what had been happening for years before they had to go in there and do something in 2022. This is important information here that people don't talk about and just think that Russia invaded Ukraine with unprovoked. Remember that. Okay, so churches were already being taken. Okay, so then it says over the last several years, more than 40 churches have been seized. Last several years, and this is reported in 2018. So this is before 2022. Mainly in the western regions of Ukraine, but there's a striking fact. The captured churches are practically empty, and many activists, quote unquote, of the raids have suffered all sorts of misfortunes, as the faithful of these villages testify. We spoke with Metropolitan Vladimir Moroz, the abbot of Pachev Lavra, about all of this. Vladika, an historical parallel involuntarily arises, given that after the 1917 revolution, the Bolsheviks supported the self-proclaimed living church, transferring Orthodox monasteries and churches to it. Likewise, there is an obvious political component now in the activities of the Ukrainian schismatics, capitalizing on the national idea. Now, just the schismatics, that's when that happened in 2018, when Patriarch Bartholomew decided to let them into the church and make them somehow unschismatics when they really are. That's when that happened, just to give you a clue. But the thing that was going on with the churches was before 2018. Remember that. The seizing of them and taking things. Okay. Capitalizing on the national idea. Moreover, the surge of aggression from raiders has fallen during the peak of political aggravation and crisis in the country. How dangerous are these initiatives of the followers of the so-called Ukrainian Orthodox Church Kiev Patriarchate today? You know, history is the best teacher. This is him answering. All these initiatives from politicians bring their people nothing but harm. How can we preserve unity and peace in our country when schisms in religious life are being supported? Exactly. What does it mean to take a church from one confession and transfer it to another? It's a crime. But the initiators of such methods should also remember that they are taking churches not just from the people, but from God. For it says in Scripture, "My house shall be called the house of prayer." You see, in Soviet times, there was such a powerful atheistic machine at work, and yet it couldn't manage to close the Pachev Lavra. Remember the 1960s, when in the period of Khrushchev persecutions, local authorities declared a real war against our Lavra. The monks were forcefully driven into the forest and fields, deprived of their residency permits, thrown in jail and psychiatric hospitals, and their cells were flooded by hoses. But the Mother of God did not allow a closure. The Lavra endured. There's the Metropolitan. After all, the Turks, Tatars, and Uniats have wanted to close the Pachev Lavra many times. There's an historical episode depicted on the walls of the Dormition Cathedral, a blockade of the Lavra, with Tatars releasing hundreds of arrows, but above the monastery is the most holy Theotokos, and the arrows are being turned back, striking the invaders. They are put to flight, And this is not a fairy tale. It's a real testimony to God's intercession. This event is preserved in the chronicles and other documents. That's how it was. In August 1675, Mehmet IV, the Turkish Sultan, was determined to take revenge on Poland for violating the Buchak Accords and for the defeat at Kotten. He sent 50,000 Turkish Tatar troops with horses under the command of Nuruddin and Tatar Sultan to attack the king. As usual, the Tatars left a scorched earth in their wake, and lo and behold, on the path of this bloody army was the small and unprotected Orthodox monastery of Pochav. Approaching it, the Turks had already burned the neighboring buildings. They killed 2 of the brethren and began to prepare for an assault. From the army's point of view, the siege of the monastery was not a major operation. At that time, the monastery had neither fortress walls nor watchtowers, as it is depicted in later engravings, and behind its wooden fence hid many civilian refugees. They expected no help from anywhere. The abbot of the monastery, Father Joseph Drumbomirski, blessed the brothers to appeal to their sole protectress, the Mother of God, and to the blessed God-pleaser Saint Job of Pochav. As you can see in this, it's pretty awesome. There she is, and there's them, and really cool. Okay. The deliverance of the Pochav monastery from the invasion of Turks in 1675. Amazing. Early in the morning of August 5th, the Turks stormed. The monks responded by serving an akathist before the miraculous Pochav icon of the Mother of God. They had only just begun to sing the first kantakin, "To Thee, the Champion Leader," when the Queen of Heaven herself appeared above the Holy Trinity Church with an outstretched omophorion in her hands, and with the heavenly angels and Saint Job. The Turks saw them and began to release arrows at these heavenly protectors, but the arrows returned and struck the bowmen themselves. The attackers were terrified and bewildered. Panic seized them, and they took off running. According to the Lavra's chronicles, several of the captives remained in the monastery after that, adopted the Christian faith, and remained there until the end of their days in monastic obedience. This event is forever imprinted in the memory of Pochav and of the whole church. Thanksgiving to the heavenly Queen for this miraculous salvation is offered daily before the miraculous Pochav icon and before the reliquary of Saint Job. There are innumerable examples of the intercession and help of the Theotokos, and every pilgrim and parishioner of the Lavra still experiences this aid. The Mother of God also appeared here in 1240 in a pillar of fire and left her footprint on a rock. She, like the burning bush, bore witnesses that this place is holy. She is the abbess here and the patroness of this land. Vladika, tell us about the tragedies that befell those who carried out the Khrushchev persecutions here in Pochav. It's a tragic story. There was a first secretary of the district committee in Kremenets named Andrei Ichinsky, who had the goal of closing the Lavra by any means. He gathered information on the monks and reported it to the KGB. When they closed the monastery's Holy Trinity site, he was personally present for the dismantling of the antique iconostasis and nearly spit on the icons, blaspheming the saints. One of the women said to him, "Do you not fear God and his punishment? Who is he? Let him punish me." He laughed and left. And that same day, his daughter, who was studying chemistry in Lvov University, was doing some experiments in the laboratory when a flask with acid exploded in her hands and burned her face and eyes. She was blinded and then died. She was buried in the village cemetery not far from the Lavra. Then this communist wept bitterly and kept saying, oh God, why have you punished me so harshly?" They say he then repented and believed in God. I wonder, do today's persecutors know about these events you have mentioned? They're hardly interested. We can only pity these people. They consciously commit these crimes, attacking the holy places, and that never goes unpunished. The question is, what is their purpose? What do they want? To fill up the measure of iniquity, to repeat the path of their predecessors? and persecutors of Christ, if they are believers and they present themselves as defenders of the faith, then the Lord does not teach us to act this way. Moreover, they think that monks are weak-willed people, but monks are not at all weak-willed. They are confessors and are ready to lay down their lives for Christ at any moment. Therefore, I pity our countrymen, our contemporaries who dare to assault the Church of Christ, interfering in the realm of the spiritual life, being completely ignorant of it, and thereby drawing upon themselves nothing but the punishment of God. We must perceive the spiritual reason in all of these anti-church phenomena and various political initiatives. In the words of Dostoevsky, Satan fights with God, and the field of battle is the heart of man. However, a new wave of seizures of Orthodox churches has swept through in recent years. Clergy from neighboring districts where there were church seizures come to see me. What is the result? People don't go to these churches. They are empty. Let's take, for example, the famous Katerinovka, where a real massacre was committed near the church. The supporters of the Kiev Patriarchate, having secured the support of the right sector, forcefully seized the Church of St. George on September 15, 2015. See, it's been going on for a while. The invaders used force, batons, and tear gas, and 20 people were injured, including defenseless women. So the poor Ukrainian Orthodox have been going through this for 10 years. Now the faithful of Katerinovka village are building a new church and praying in it. If you go there and speak with the priest, he will tell you what consequences befell the raiders, what happened over the course of these 3 years with these aggressors. Some have died, others have seriously hurt themselves in various situations. One has gotten sick with tuberculosis, another with jaundice, another was injured by a horse while plowing, another got into an accident. What must be done so that peace could reign, not just in the religious life, but in Ukraine as a whole? The Lord has said, "By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have loved one another, if ye have love one to another." This is the main condition for any peace in families and society and government, the fulfillment of this commandment of Christ. Why is there not mutual understanding between people? Is it because the desire to understand, respect, love, and rejoice in one another has disappeared? And as a consequence, the growth of lawlessness. St. Seraphim of Varitza said that in our times people will perish from envy, thirst for profit, and love of money. For the sake of money, they will sell their family values, their conscience, their morality, and all that is truly valuable for the sake of greed. Comfort is advertised as the ideal of human perfection in which we all desire to live, and modern man dies spiritually in pursuit of this comfort. Man walks into such a jungle in the spiritual plane that he is unable to leave on his own. He is already bound hand and foot to the forces of evil, and Satan will not let go of his sacrifice. Man thinks, just one more step, just one more deal, then I'll think about my soul, and so on until old age, and then there is neither time nor energy for it. I would like Vladika to finish our conversation on an optimistic note. How should believers behave in these conditions? We must remember that the Lord is with us and that the thorny and narrow path leads us to the kingdom of heaven. We are given freedom, therefore we must use it more on prayer and protect ourselves with the sign of the cross more often, that the Lord would not deprive us of his mercy, and that the Spirit of God would instruct us and inspire us, that we would remember that the path of patience, humility, and love leads to the heavenly kingdom. It's very difficult for Christians now, but the Lord sees and knows our needs and will never leave us without his protection and help. It was no accident that he said, "Fear not, little flock." We must have the faith of the saints as an example, to figuratively speaking, be deaf and dumb to the temptations of this world. Amazing. That's what the Metropolitan Vladimir Morris had said of Pochev, had said back in 2018. So this history is extremely important. It's showing that they've been going through this for 10 years, and before that, so the 10 years of that, and then before that during the Soviet era. So they had almost just a little respite until this stuff started up again. Really terrible. So I'm gonna give you one more story that's very important. I want to share a quote from the. UOC hierarchs. That's the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the canonical one. Hierarchs. This is back in March 2025. Saints of the Kiev caves will defend themselves. This will end poorly for the blasphemers. Hold on just a second. Gotta write this so I don't forget. Okay. So we're going to go into, because we already know about the inspections and trying to do all these weird tests on him. We're going to just read His Eminence Metropolitan Theodosi of Cherkasy, who is himself a personal target for persecution by the state. Yes, that's been going on for quite some time, at least a couple of years. Brothers and sisters, let us not panic, but maintain reasonable calm. Everything is happening as it was meant to happen. Where this matter is heading became obvious to many, not today, not yesterday, and not even 3 years ago. Today, the venerable fathers of the caves don't need our help or protection. They'll protect us themselves. Wow. Very soon, they will protect us. It's just that their power and their right to our land is not understood by those who are now tampering with their relics. They are doing just what their spiritual predecessors did in 1922 and 1941. They also did not understand, so let them tamper. Wow. A few years ago, when full-scale persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church was just beginning in our country, a few years ago, don't forget that, it was a while back, and the inhabitants of the Lavra were still skeptically smiling at questions about whether they would allow the authorities to divide the Upper Lavra between the church and the OCU, and heard these words from one secular but sensible person. Quote, "If only they would not touch the caves and the relics of the saints, this will end tragically. Tragically for the blasphemers." That was a quote from the secular person. Not tragically for the blasphemers, but the rest of the sentence, as you can see. "We have all already suffered from their lawlessness and impunity, but we can do nothing about it. However, unlike us, the venerable saints can." Shortly before Abbot of the, Lavra, Metropolitan Arseny, was thrown behind bars in response to the weeping and complaints of believers about the events taking place, Vladika said, "The last word will belong to the saints of the Kiev caves." And now the persecutors are forcing the saints to give this word sooner. Let us place our hope in the saints with faith and let the lawless ones do their work faster. Wow. Wow. I'm just going to say those words again. Today, the venerable fathers of the caves don't need our help or protection. They'll protect us themselves. Very soon, they will protect us. Amazing. So the saints, relics of those saints are going to protect the people in Ukraine. And what's so amazing is that, these people are walking on thin ice. You know that saying. You don't mess with God's sacred and holy things. Now, that was out on March 31st. This is when this all started with the relics and with the kicking the monks out of doing, being around the relics and all that, you see. But it was actually things that were happening before that. But this particular issue of the monks being out of the caves and they're not allowed to be with the relics and all that. That was reported, that article was reported March 31st. So, let's not forget, March to September is 6 months. Okay? Let's go back to this prophecy. Ukraine monks, 2014 prophecy. Russia will defeat Ukraine 6 months after heretics occupy Kiev monastery. Okay, just going to bring that up one more time. So it was back. So previously, this Igor Strelka, as I've shared this, previously Minister of Defense of the Donetsk People's Republic, also claimed in late 2022 that in 2014, while he was minister, monks from this monastery approached him bearing this prophecy half a year after the heretics take over the Kiev Peshmerga Lavra in the caves. Russia will reunite with Ukraine as it was before, and Kiev will be liberated not just from the heretics, but also all outside forces. They're saying this, okay? I find this fascinating because if you want to take this literally, 6 months would be, September would be the month that hopefully this war will be over and that Russia and Ukraine, will stop this war and they'll come together and they'll save the church, the canonical church in Ukraine, and maybe the saints. I would say the saints are going to be involved in this. I've read this, that the saints will be involved in this. They're not going to allow this, as Father Elpidio said. They're going to allow them to just totally destroy this. So amazing words there. Amazing story, so you understand this whole background. That it's not just now, not just 2022, that we've been hearing in the Western media and then, saying that, it was just Russia attacked unprovoked, and, no history there about what's been going on with NATO and the coup in 2014 and the disrupting, and then Patriarch Bartholomew, who's been conversing with the U.S. State Department for, years ago, always asking for their help because of being in Turkey, but I feel like he was compromised by that, and look what happened. All these things came to pass. So let's pray. Let's pray that this ends soon. And I'm comforted by the saints that they're going to do something. And this is hopefully going to end very, very soon, God willing. Okay, I hope that this was very informative for you. As I said, if any videos I do that are informative, like this one, that you think that would be good to share, go ahead and share it. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel. I hope you have a blessed day, evening, morning, wherever you are. Until next time.